Welcome to Freedom Talk. I'm so delighted to welcome my friend Dr. Robert Renteria here. He's got a fantastic story. Robert, welcome. Let's dive right in.
Good morning. Hi. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So we were talking yesterday. Freedom Talk magazine. I have also tried personally to really make people aware of your book series. It's a fantastic book series. This one, the graphic novel, my kids have all looked at it. They love it. My kids are a little bit older than this one, but I know my 10-year-old daughter still has enjoyed it. And
Awesome.
we are working on, my wife is reading this one, and we're working on fresh book reviews for all of these. So
Nice.
maybe we start with Robert. You could tell a little bit about your story and the books for anybody who's not yet aware of who you are and the work that you're doing.
Well, thank you. In short, it's a bilingual book series. It's a K through 12 program. So you have from the Barrio to the Boardroom, which is used in middle schools and high schools, addressing conflict resolution and critical thinking. It has a curriculum, an academic curriculum that is donated at no cost to all middle schools and high schools. So if there's educators who would like to see that curriculum, they can contact me and I'll send it to them electronically at no cost. And
Awesome.
then the graphic novel. Well, here's the book I was talking about, From the Barrio to the Boardroom, middle schools and high schools, English and Spanish, and also digital. I wanted to cut the umbilical cord to the gang recruitment because gang recruitment happens in starting the third grade and up, believe it or not.
Yeah.
So I had an idea to release a high-end graphic novel called Me Barrio, My Hood. And that book came out screaming. It was voted the best graphic novel in Latin America, Spain, the United States of America for addressing youth issues.
Wow, that's so great.
So then I wanted to go back to the drawing board and release even another book for pre-K, K1 and 2, and that book is called Little Barrio. Also, I want to mention that we have a faith-inspired curriculum that is donated to the ministries at no cost. So we can get kids into Bible study leading to Christ, so our kids can see the promised land. So there's two curriculums that are donated at no cost, middle schools and high schools, and the ministries, churches as well. So again, you can reach out to me. And the best way to get me is just feel free to give me a call at 312-933-5619. And the website is www.fromthebarrio, that's BARRIO.com. And other people can do some research. If you want to learn more, just go to Google and Google my name, Robert Renteria, and there's a lot of content out there. So in short, in the last 2 decades, this program has morphed into more of a movement. We're now in over 25 countries around the world mentoring kids. I'm just recently, last year, got endorsed by the World Boxing Council. They mentor boys and girls ages 8 to 18 in 176 countries.
Yeah.
So, we're in it to win it, so to speak. We want to save lives and change lives. So that's where I've spent my life trying to find solutions and bringing culturally relevant tools to the table to save lives and change lives and promote literacy and education. It's also morphed into many different verticals. Like here in Illinois, we're in all the Illinois state prisons, homeless shelter, battered women's shelters, police, probation, and what we're doing is trying to create these alignments. Right, we create partnerships so that we can come at this like this one big army. Because I was in the military for over 7 years as a U.S. Army Airborne veteran, non-commissioned officer, so I'm trying to align groups not just here in Illinois but across the country, promoting peace building through literacy and education, right? Trying to create what I call a culture of calm. So
Yeah.
that's where I've been. And then, I've been kind of kicking around the last couple of years with trying to figure out what is wrong with the Republican Party. And I came up with my own analysis of that. And that's what you and I were talking about yesterday. And, we can kind of kick some ideas around how we can win local and state elections.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Let me pull us back here. Yeah, you had some great ideas there. And by the way, I just want to say it's a great opportunity for people to be able to call you directly. Not everyone shares that information. Certainly not authors and thought leaders like yourself. So I hope that folks watching will take advantage of that. I found you to be, excuse me, very personable. I consider you a friend now, and
Thank you.
the work you're doing is fantastic. So, Robert, maybe share what you and I were talking about yesterday about some ways we can help the GOP, the grand old party. It's a bit musty in places and outdated and out of touch. How can we change that?
Well, we have to go for being grumpy old people, right?
Yeah,
And really be the party for all the people, not just, and I'm going to say it without offending people, but this is how I see it. We can't say we're the party for and of the people, because when they told me that originally a couple of years ago, I said, which people are you talking about? You're talking about the white people? Because everywhere I've gone in Illinois the last couple of years, engaging with the Republican Party, everybody's white. It's a white sandbox. So, a big idea whose time has changed is we have to take a chapter out of the good book and follow the example of our Lord Jesus Christ and go out there and start loving on all the people, right? So, and I'm sure that, that everybody that could be listening who's Republican, you believe that you are Christian conservative, and you probably are, but you can't just say you love the tacos and you love the margaritas. We have to love the people.
yeah,
So I think that we have to break out of and I'll be nice and say our comfort zone, or being complacent, or being uncomfortable. And we have to go out there. President Trump didn't win simply because white people voted for him. He had 20 million plus Hispanics that voted for him because they were inspired to vote. Because I've heard the nonsense of saying, well, blacks and Latinos don't vote. I said, they don't vote for you because they don't know you. Right? There's no reason to vote for you, because I learned the last couple of years, somebody put a script for Republican candidates and Republicans that say that I'm Christian conservative, married with children, I own a business, and I want to save Illinois, and I want to fight for you. Can I count on your money and count on your vote? The answer is absolutely not. I don't know you. Or when you tell me that what you're going to do on day one, if elected. So my question is, why don't you do it now, win, lose, or draw? So we have to become more missional and more relational, and to get involved. You and I spoke yesterday when I said, could you, and I was talking to some ladies then at a Republican event. I said, ladies, show of hands. I said, if your husband today would have told you back then that if you marry me, maybe after we're married, I'll take you to dinner, and
yeah,
I'll take you on vacation, and I'll buy you flowers and candy and take you to the movies, what would you have said? And they said that you're crazy. So
yeah,
what I'm saying is the Republican Party, in my opinion, is crazy for believing that they can just tell me what you're going to do and not be involved.
yeah,
I've been working with kids for the last 2 decades, right? And it not only changed and saved their life, but it changed and saved my life because I wasn't involved. But when I go to these events in Illinois, and everybody, 99 to 100% of the people, every single time and everywhere I go is white, you can't win that way. And you're not going to win. And we're not winning that way because we're not missional.
yeah,
I had a guy, and I have to give him credit for being honest. He was running for Congress, and I created this meeting, was called Pathway to Victory. And I'm trying to school these folks what they need to do to get from point A to point B, which is the finish line. And when it was over, he came up to me, and I thought he was going to say, thank you for all this information. He says, Dr. Renteria, all I care about is money and votes. And he walked out. And I said, well, then I can't work with you. I'm not going to work with you if you don't care about people. Now, I gave them an example. Here in Illinois, there was a man by the name of Secretary of State Jesse White. Jesse White was Secretary of State, just retired, for 24 years. You couldn't touch this guy. And when I was in 2009, I received an author's award. I was the first Latino in the state to receive an author's award by Secretary of State's office. I asked him, I said, Mr. Secretary, I said, what's your secret? And he leaned in and he looked at the wall. It was a picture of all these kids called the Jesse White Tumblers that he was sponsored, here in Illinois. And I said, what's your point? And he says, you help the kids, you get the parents, you get the votes. He was helping kids get them away from bullying, gangs, violence, drugs, suicides, and school dropouts. And people were enamored with him. Now I'm growing and we're scaling for the last 2 decades into multiple cities, states, and countries, not because I'm so smart. It's working because we're helping the kids, and the kids are the future. So what I want to say to the party is you have to get out there. There was a man that I helped back in 2008 who is running for Senate, and he was not getting the Hispanic or the Black votes. He donated a bunch of Barrio books to a school on the east side, which is pretty clever because they were all those families were Democrats. And they said, well, why would you give books to Democratic kids and their families? Because he needed to show another side of himself, that he cared about the kids. And anybody helping kids, people got curious and started calling me about this man. And guess what happened? After he had lost his first run before he met me, he won 3 times after that because he was helping kids. So whatever the mission is, whatever your passion is about going out and helping the community, you have to get involved. I'll let you jump in right now because I'll keep talking on this subject because it's really frustrating for me that they're nowhere to be seen except at the country club or in their own space where they're comfortable.
Yeah, and when you say white, I mean, sometimes the left and actually kind of the far right, if you want to call it that, we classify people by skin color. I don't think you're talking as much about skin color as you are about an attitude and a sort of a cultural isolation. And I've also been involved with kids. Actually, no, let's see, wrong one. Let me remove that. This is a very young me, believe it or not. I have
Right,
two sons older than this now, but this was 1990 through 91 when I was 20 and 21, serving over in Sri Lanka. And in a sense, skin color had very little to do with it. We got along very well. We had, Sri Lankans go from very light skinned up to very dark, and it's not necessarily about skin, but it's about being available. And I still have many friends who were students, and like I promised you the other day, I'm going to look up some pictures from when I was a bilingual teacher in El Paso. But what you're saying really resonates with me because I've found that just by being human and being approachable and taking an interest in other people, skin color fades to the background. And
right,
so when you talk about whiteness, I think it's an attitude. And I approach this carefully because I know conservatives are um, very cautious of this term. I think it's a fine line to walk, and I know some people like Larry Elder, they're called told they have whiteness even though they're dark skinned. I think the whole thing is a bit of an abstraction because if we are treating people like people, those things don't matter as much. But if we talk about, the Black community and efforts to self-segregate, say these are Black areas only, or this is a Black school, then we keep that division. And to me, the important thing, Robert, is that we see people as people. We don't disregard heritage or certain differences we have sometimes that are skin deep, but also can be cultural, but that we recognize people as people. So I had that really good experience in Chicago that I've told you about when Mike Lindell brought me up to the DNC just before the 2024 election.
right.
And I got to meet a lot of Black inner city Chicago voters, and we had a great conversation. But they had felt alienated. They had voted for Biden, but they found that promises were broken, and instead of getting the care and connection that they were promised, all of that, including certain funding essential to any community, was handed to illegals. So there is a lot of work to be done, and I think there's an opportunity for the GOP to reach out and say, "Look, we hear you, we see you, we want you to be a part of things."
Right. I mean, I've spoken to a lot of Republicans here, and I'm not taking punches at anybody, but it's time for change, right? I call it ostrich syndrome, right? Where their heads in the ground, their butts in the air, and they're trying to hide from the elephant in the room. And it's time that we put it on the table because, the leadership here in Illinois, again, I've been told when I ask, why aren't you already engaged into the fabric of the Black and the Hispanic communities? I said, my whole family's Republican. We're Mexican American, and we're legal. We're born here, and I was told we don't travel the same social circles. So with that kind of an attitude, right, you're never going to here in Illinois. I can't speak for the whole country, right? But here in Illinois, you're never going to win because your attitude is backwards. I mean, I was just at the unity breakfast the other day, and for the governor's race, and I can tell you that 99% of the room was of Caucasian, and the 1% was me and the people serving the food. So you can't tell me that there's not a certain amount of bigotry going around and privilege, if you want to call it that. And there's nothing wrong with money till money becomes your god. But if we're not going to be genuinely involved, then we have to change that conversation.
Yes.
I'm trying to do that here in Illinois, but it's been a very slow burn. I was talking to somebody at the Unity Breakfast about this subject, and then she said to me, "Well, we've never done this before." I said, "Well, you never made friends? Because this is what we're talking about, breaking bread. We break bread, we go red. So we have to sit down with people. We can't do ignorant behavior, as I told you at the last election, 10 days before the presidential election. The GOP here in the western suburbs actually put up a tent, and we're trying to give tacos to the Hispanics and asking them to vote Republican. That was a total insult to the community. So when you do stuff like that, or as I mentioned to you, I helped unseat some people that were not active in the western suburbs, and we put somebody from the Middle East as chair, a Hispanic as vice chair, and a Korean as secretary. When that happened that night, and this is the kind of behavior I'm talking about that has to stop, a lady stood up at the meeting, and I quote her by saying, "Now I have to move and sell my house because there's a Hispanic on the board."
Mm.
That's unacceptable. So
Yeah.
that's all I'm talking about, Kelly, is that it's time for change, and it has to be about nothing to do with age, race, religion, or economic background, but about one race, the human race.
See, and I went to grad school in New Mexico. I lived in Las Cruces for quite some time. I've spent a lot of time living in Arizona, and those communities are more integrated. So you tend to see people as people, and I don't know. They've lived together for so long. It's just it's different than what I've experienced in some other states, and there's a certain kind of harmony. Of course, there is contention as well. One thing I experienced, Robert, is I am fluent in Spanish. My father spoke Spanish. My older sister did. I studied it. I've been very fascinated by the language and culture. My first trip overseas was as a part of a college Spanish class. I spent 5 weeks in Spain. I've been to Nicaragua and other countries to practice. And something that I find, and maybe this is a fault of stereotypes that sometimes white people perpetrate, but I go up to people all the time because I love to practice and I love to meet people um, and ask them about their lives. I'll go up to people and start speaking Spanish, and oftentimes I get a very friendly response. But there are two other responses I get. One is people don't understand me at all because it's so out of context for this big white guy to be speaking Spanish. So they literally just stay in English mode and do not understand me until they suddenly realize, oh, he's speaking Spanish, and their brain flips to that. Another
Right.
one is, and I can't put my finger on it, but it's almost a shyness, or they'll speak English back to me, and I wonder, like, do they think I'm patronizing? Do I think that I'm? Do they think I'm implying they don't speak English? Because it's to the contrary. It's that I really I like to speak in Spanish, and I only get so many opportunities. So for me, I lament that people experience that kind of prejudice. For me, people from myriad other countries are very, very interesting to me. And I think there's something lost there. I think the open border policy and some of the fear and crime and things that have come with that, of fentanyl, child trafficking. I've been to those areas on the border. I know border patrol agents. I've sent secret videos during the Biden era to media. I'm very involved in that world. I know. In fact,
Yeah.
he just texted me while we're talking. Sheriff Mark Lamb. He's been very involved in that area. I've seen the border where there's just stashes of backpacks left behind, the rape trees with the panties in them, all of that. So that complicates matters too, to where there's a fear of this invasion and a fear of the bad elements that come in. But I have to say, by and large, there are a lot of people here who are second, third, or even um, fourth, who knows how many generations have been here, who are in every way American citizens. And I see a stereotype against them too, that they're just going to be very supportive of open borders, and I don't see that in the Hispanic community.
Not at all. I mean, for those who may not be familiar with our background, but we're Christian conservative, right? We work hard, we love our family, we pay our taxes. We're not all committing crimes. So I got asked the other day, well, Dr. Renteria, how do we fix the problem? I said, it's pretty simple. It's one word. It's called love. We need to learn how to love each other and take care of each other because that's how the foundation of this world was built. And if we build on that foundation, then we could be a champion of this place we call home to take care of our families, our neighbors, our community, our great city, and then beyond. Now, I'm not speaking for the whole country, right? Because I do know there's a lot of other states that are have come together. But here in Illinois, it's so fractured and so divided. And
Yeah.
that's what I would like to help people understand that
Yeah.
it's we're not aliens, right? We're all if we
Yeah.
cut our hands right now, both of us right now, we both bleed red,
Yeah.
right? So
E pluribus unum from many one. And
yeah, yeah. So I want to say that I believe that if we water the flowers, if we have gardens, if we water the flowers are going to grow. But if we don't water our garden and we're not putting the time to spread the bread and break bread and love our neighbors, truly love our neighbors, then that garden is gonna die.
yeah.
So we're dying as a party here because it's self-inflicted, right? We're not investing the time and we're not watering the flowers and we're not breaking bread. And I
Right.
believe, and you and I talked about that several times, I've already said it. If we break bread, we go red.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. I'm gonna put that up on the screen because that's just a great mantra. It's something that people can remember. And biblically, the Bible says there's neither Jew nor Greek, slave nor free, all are one in Christ Jesus. And certainly, if you're a Christian, you have to embrace people no matter where they come from as brothers and sisters. Robert, I can usually tell with a pretty good amount of confidence when I run into people who are here, undocumented, illegal use. But I find most of the people I run into are just families trying to survive. They're beautiful, wonderful people. We do need pragmatic solutions, and honestly, we need some of those countries to take responsibility for their citizens and provide pathways. I think we've always been a nation that is open to legal immigration, but one thing that I think is really important is that we still love these people. We don't look at them as quote unquote invaders. It's more like they've been used and
Yep,
sold
yep.
a paradise and given incentives. We need to love those people, and there's going to be criminal elements in any culture, but we also have to identify that there are a lot of people struggling to make it. So, but by and
Yeah.
large, I think we're talking about American citizens. Hispanic and Black communities have been coming over to the Republican side for years, and I think we can blow it if we don't embrace them with open arms.
We have a once in a lifetime never opportunity to unite, have create this unity campaign of bringing people together. I got criticized, right? Listen to this ridiculous thing I want to share with you. They were asking me, "What are you working on right now?" I said, "I'm working on creating this coalition with ex-offenders." And they said, "Why would you do that? They're murderers and rapists." I said, "Look, these people are reformed. They're Christian. They're working with Christian ministries. They're out there. Nobody wants to bury a child. Nobody wants your kid to go to prison." And then this lady, old school Republican, she says, "Well, they can't vote." I say, "Yes, they can vote in Illinois." She goes, "No, they can't." I say, "Yes, they can. Let me show you." And then she said, "Well, then they can't volunteer." I said, "What is wrong with you?" She got angry because I'm talking to people who are ex-offenders. When in fact, right, when in fact, 3.5 million people in the state of Illinois, one quarter of the population, they are eligible to vote. If they're formerly incarcerated and criminal records, they are eligible to vote. And I've met a lot of these people who are really wanting to be champions of change and why that's important, not just for the votes, but a lot of these ex-offenders and current gang members who I've met both black and the brown communities, we're aligning because nobody wants to have their kid get killed. And all the shorties on the street, these older gentlemen and women have influence on these kids. So if we created an army, right, then we could have true public safety. Illinois for 13 years is the most violent state in the country, right? In the country. So that's why I want to create a culture of calm, peace building through literacy and education, right?
Mhm.
I want to have prevention over intervention, right? Which is what I built in my program. So when a Republican Party frowns on me for wanting to work with this population, it's insane. We still have a lot of work to do
Mhm.
because they're looking down their nose, right? And we have to look at each other and sit down and break bread. I don't yet understand fully what the the ignorance is of this whole thing that we're sharing, but it needs to change. And I want to be put myself out there for the United States to bring a ground game to help the party understand that if we're going to win, we have to unite. Because the Republican Party is no longer the majority; they're the minority. Like it or not, they can't win without the minority vote. Bottom line.
And pragmatically, politically, that's very important. But here's the caveat: it has to be genuine because
Yep.
wasn't it Jill Biden who went in and was addressing a Hispanic group and said something about tacos, and
Yeah.
it's people can tell when they're being patronized, and so I think honestly, particularly if you're a Christian, you have to go back and evaluate: am I loving people even when they're different,
Yep.
or am I am I going to a church that's exclusive? Am I in a certain community that isn't open? That has to change. It really
Yeah.
does.
I'm not saying anything that anybody's a bad person. What I'm saying is we have to put it on the table and address it, and then take the steps forward that are necessary, that we correct something to our own fault, right? Like I said, self-inflicted wounds, right? This is our problem as a party that we created. So I
Yeah.
go back to what I said: if we're more missional and we're more relational, right, and we create this cohesive band of brothers and sisters, if you want to call it that, because what I'm seeing here again in Illinois is if you aligned all the military, I was in the military for over 7 years, and you had Army, Air Force, Navy, Marines, and we're going that way, right? Trying to go to 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 win the battle. But here, if I'm in the battle, I got people shooting me in the back from my own party. So
Yeah.
all that infighting and people are like more of a cannibalization, and they're trying to eat each other instead of love each other and lift each other up. So once we can get past that and create that alignment, hey, then look out, baby, here we come. We're going to be a fierce force. But we got to get to that.
Yep. I'm going to take a quick break to play a little plug for Freedom Talk Magazine. Of course, we're helping promote your books and your efforts through Freedom Talk Magazine. You said something really kind yesterday. You said something like, Kelly, you're the one of the best kept secrets out there, and Freedom Talk Magazine is so important. And I want you to comment on that. And when we come back, I want to ask you to give sort of a pitch that I can share with candidates. But you it looks like you wanted to respond before I
So
cut to a quick ad.
I'll let you go to the commercial. We'll come back.
Okay.
America's founders warned that without knowledge and virtue, no nation can remain free. Yet through the steady infiltration of Marxist ideology, we have been stripped of both, and we are no longer a moral and educated people. To save America, we must spark nothing less than a national renaissance. That's why you need Freedom Talk Magazine, the journal of truth and virtue. We cultivate enlightened thinking and principled living, offering unique insights into the issues and remarkable people defining our world. Sign up today for your free subscription to Freedom Talk Magazine and join the new American Renaissance.
So subscription is free, but we also have a premium subscription that's just $5 a month, or you can pay all at once for $50 a year. And really, Freedom Talk Magazine isn't just reporting the news, because a news cycle moves quickly, and what's fresh today is gone tomorrow. And a lot of people just see the news and don't necessarily really understand what's behind it. And we can be very susceptible to clever headlines by the mainstream media, social media. And what Freedom Talk does is really goes to that headwater of culture and says, this is how we can understand this. This is a perspective that we can have on things. And that's one of the primary reasons I'm so glad to have you here, Robert, is that you give a perspective on this issue. And so I want to ask you, if I were to send a little clip of a video to, say, a candidate or someone in politics, tell me, Dr. Renteria, what you can offer for the Republican Party through your books and through your program, and the support you can give to candidates and office holders.
Well, let me go back to your question before about, being the best kept secret. I've shared your information with a lot of the people that I know who have businesses, right? And who are looking to go into politics. And that article you did about human trafficking that we just did last month, I got to tell you, how did you find this guy? Is the response I got, and where has Kelly Walker been? So the there's a lot of people who don't know you that need to know you. And
Wow.
I'm going to be a soldier for you by introducing you to my networks, because like I said, uniting the nation as a party is a big idea whose time has come. We have to be willing to do the things today that others will not do, so we can have things tomorrow that others do not have. So to the question of how we can help the candidates, is I've worked with people running for office who have used my program to get into the Democratic Party's home, because nobody throws away a good book. So they're distributing books all into all these different places, and it's allowing them to have a conversation with these people to show that, hey, we are good people, right? We're not just politicians, because they're talking about what they're going to do on day one. No, this is what I'm doing now, and that's a whole different conversation. And I think that what I can bring to the table is pretty simple. I've already got a ground game. I've been out there for 20 years. We donate an academic program to schools at no cost. We could align ourselves and do that. We have a curriculum that we donate to the ministries and churches at no cost. We could do that together. It's not going to cost anything. We raise some capital for engaging in some collaboration for some schools or some corporations for speeches and for some books. But that book becomes a really good tool to showing you that you really do care about our children and our communities. And there's a lot of different verticals that I work in that we can help making introductions to, because it's not always what you say, but it's the person who says it. So sometimes it's the messenger, right? So it's not that they won't listen to you, but if you have no credibility in the Black and brown communities, you have to have somebody out there being your voice to bring you in. And I'm happy to have those conversations, to help those who I believe are aligned with my core values, to bring them to the community and show them that there are good people out there like Kelly Walker that people need to know.
Fantastic. And I encourage listeners, viewers to go to fromthebarrio.com and reach out to Dr. Renteria directly at 312-933-5619, as you see on the screen. You can also go to realfreedomtalk.com and look at the past few issues. I think we started probably in February running some information about you. And you're not someone obscure. You've done a TED Talk. You're involved internationally. You've got connections in the boxing community that you've told me about. I know from having taken my two oldest kids through boxing that is the sweet science is very important in the Hispanic and Black communities, really all communities. But I know some Hispanic communities look at that as a way up, a way to rise, and the character that it instills. And I can say firsthand, a boxing workout, there's no harder workout than that, but that young people can go through the ranks and make a name for themselves. So
Right.
connecting with that is important. For my oldest boys to go through boxing, they got to get into the ring with people, they got to know families, Hispanic families and others, and it was really good for them.
Right. I mean, we promote athletics and academics, right? Because not everybody's going to be a heavyweight champion or a champion in the boxing space. We want to be champions, but the reality is not everybody's going to be a champion. So I want them to fall back on their education, because bright futures are built on a strong education, and equal education means equal pay. And it's a great equalizer for any race, any kid, anywhere in the world. So that's a space I'm in. I do want to help people, good people. We sit down, let's break bread and see if we can help you go red, because that's the recipe that I've used, and that's the recipe that's working for the people that I'm working with.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And back to Freedom Talk and the very kind comments you made. Sometimes really informing people, especially in this day and age when people are trained to trivia, to memes, to everything digital. Um, Granted, promoting and producing something that has you slow down a little bit and think critically, it is very, very important. We need to be able to think again as a people. And that's one of the reasons why we've gotten ourselves in a bind, is that we've stopped thinking. Our schools aren't teaching critical thinking as much as a hatred for your country, and some very troubling things like the idea that you can change your gender. And we need to get back to the core values that make this nation. So for me, it's been a little bit of a slow build. I started Freedom Talk magazine in 2021 in a little coffee shop in Tucson, and we've grown from there, and we reach 2 to 4 million email addresses each month, in large part thanks to Mike Lindell and others who share us on their email list. So, but I do want it to grow, not for the sake of my ego, and God knows it's not making me rich, but it is. After years of working, it's helping provide for our family, but most importantly, it's really helping redevelop the heart and soul of this nation. And it's so very important because we have to be a people who can think critically, who know where our values come from, who embrace the founding principles, and who understand the roots of our faith and also our love of country. So thank you for those kind words. And I appreciate all the contacts you're sending my way. And I try to bless you with contacts and shows. And I want to tell anyone who's watching this who has a show, have Dr. Renteria on. He's a fantastic guest, and he brings some real depth and value.
Well, thank you. For those listening, my goal is to bring God back to the classroom, and that's what I'm doing with my books and my program. And also, I'm going to be fighting to help the Republican Party that we put the flag of the United States of America back into our classroom as well, and to fight to eradicate the indoctrination of the pornography that is poisoning our little babies in schools.
Yeah.
So I'm here to be a resource, and I think that if we sit down and we collaborate, I can find out how I can help you. Because in order to fix this, the problem-solving process is number one, recognize a problem, two, find a solution, and three, take action. And I'm happy to have those conversations on how we can go out there and help the community first, and then talk about how we can help the Republican Party create that ground game that's very, very necessary, especially here in Illinois.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Robert, for coming back on. We'll keep in touch. We'll have you on again. And certainly we're going to keep sharing information through Freedom Talk Magazine. We've got a lot to discuss. I'm looking forward to having you on more shows, getting out to the media with this whole fantastic idea of when let me see, I want to make sure I get this right. When we break bread, we go red. Is that right?
That's right.
If we break bread, we go red.
If we break bread, we go red. 100%.
Yeah. Well, thank you. It's Friday, and we've got a good weekend coming ahead. And if you would like to get these books, tell us again where people can go to get the fantastic books that you've written.
Okay, so you can call me directly, please, and I return all calls within 24 hours at 312-933-5619. My website is www.fromthebarrio. That's from the Barrio, BARRIO.com. And to get more content, to do a deeper dive, you can always Google me and just Google the name Robert Renteria, Renteria.
Fantastic. Go out and get these books. You're doing yourself a favor. They're great reads. It's a fantastic story. I love your books. And
thank you.
Dr. Renteria, we'll talk to you again soon. Thanks a lot for coming on.
Yeah. Thank you, Kellen. Thank you.